time management is a buzzword. It's not really time that you're managing. It's yourself that you're managing within the time that you have. And the distinctions, there's not a whole lot of distinction or difference in the two, and yet we cannot, like, we all get the same amount of time, so it's not really that. And there's a lot of layers underneath managing yourself within the time that are important, especially ones that aren't as conscious or obvious. And a lot of achievers, when they work to reduce the amount of time that something takes, we're fighting against ourselves. And what I mean by that is we've got a certain amount of time that we have to, like, we want to get it condensed, and we want to be able to have more time with our family, or more time for hobbies, or more time for another business or venture. And a lot of times, to do that, if we do it effectively, it creates space. And the achiever can't necessarily tolerate that space. So one thing to think about is if I actually achieved the time savings in what I'm wanting to accomplish by managing my time or managing myself, would I be able to tolerate that? Like, if you took the amount of time that your business is taking from you right now, each week that you're trading to make it work, and you cut it in half, is that is that a purely good thought and feeling? Is it terrifying? Is that something that you think you want, but really, if you ever got it, it would destabilize you? And so I think that's the first thing to think about, is on the underneath layers of time management, is if we're working against ourselves to create time margin and time space, can we actually tolerate it? And the other part is, what kind of business did you build? Did you build a business that needs you and fulfills that need of needing you, right, or being needed, and yet you're frustrated by the fact that it needs you, and you've double bound yourself in because the way you structured it was, if you need the control of the business, then you structured it most likely to where it needs you, and it needs you, which is great, until it wears you out and you don't want to be needed by it. And so we want to work through being needed part and the fact that your business needs you, because you created the whole thing that way unconsciously. And same thing happens with hires and people that we bring in, is we sometimes will find these people unconsciously that will fit with what we're needing unconsciously and what we're creating, and then we get frustrated by it. Like, oh, all of my people always ask me about everything, and they can't do anything autonomously. And yet, when you come in, you control the whole situation. If somebody takes action, you come back and question that action, and you've basically designed it to where they're incentivized to sit and wait until you say something, and they're going to sit and wait, because if they take action, then you have a question on it, and it slows down the process. So they might as well just wait until you come in and tell them what's next and tell them what to do. And most people that create those businesses wear out and they get tired, or they start to realize that the pain is not worth being needed in the business. And now, how do we actually structurally shift the business so that it doesn't need us? And so within that time management and managing ourselves within the time that we have, what kind of business did we create? Did we create one that needs us on an ongoing basis, that was fulfilling a need of ours by being needed, and we ultimately want to start to step away from that? And how do we actually work through the steps of, first of all, letting go of needing the business to need you, and then structurally setting it up to where the people in the business are the right people with the right authority and autonomy to act without our constant involvement. And systematically, like from an X's and O's standpoint, or just a strategic standpoint, if we don't build a system, like, most businesses are generally systems, and if we don't build the right system and processes, then there is no business. We are the business. If, like, business doesn't move unless we move. And a lot of owner operators are in that place where if we don't do something, the business doesn't move forward. And so once we can figure out to let go of being needed, and we can clarify that we are okay with buying more time back, or getting more time back. And then now we're a little more in alignment, or we won't have the inner resistance to actually move forward and create a system around a business. And a mentor of mine had told me before that when it comes to businesses, we need to turn what we do and what we know into a system, and that's what creates a business. And if you look at the most successful businesses, some of them on the planet, like McDonald's, right? The systems are such that the skill and autonomy and decision-making ability of the person running the system, it lowers that bar so that you don't need highly skilled people with a lot of autonomy and authority to run it. And so depending on your business, you may have varying degrees of autonomy needed, but if people run it the way you run it, there's no way they're going to be able to do what you want. And if you have assumptions and just assuming people are going to know the way you want it to be run, then I hear that all the time where it's like, well, I just thought that they would know that, or that's obvious, or that's common sense. And it's common sense to you, but it's not common sense to humanity. And there are different perceptions, and other people see it differently. And when they see it differently and they do the thing that fits them, it's now the wrong thing in your eyes. So not only is it not clear and not getting done, now you're making them wrong for doing it the way that's natural to them when you didn't set the right expectations. And so you can set up the system, and you start to take everything out of you and turn it into like what you do and what you know into that system and structure it. And there's tools, there's lots of tools for that, standard operating procedures and AI tools that now can reference those SOPs that you have and start to turn it into a systematic business, and clarifying roles and clarifying responsibilities and ultimately handing ownership over to the employee or the people running it, so that they have emotional ownership over the role. Because if you have the control issues, if you have those challenges and you need to be needed, then you won't have it structured for them to have authority and autonomy and emotional ownership. And they're not going to take the emotional ownership unless you cultivate that within them and defer to them and empower them and allow them to step up into the role and have clear goals about what you want done. And so when we look at managing ourselves and managing ourselves within the amount of time that we have and working to reduce that, a lot of that process is emotional first and perceptual. And we work into where are the things that I'm creating the challenge in my own business. I'm creating the thing that is holding me into it. And also not just disempowering myself, but disempowering the people that are working alongside me in this business. And once we figure that out and work through the emotional piece, now we can go to the nuts and bolts of it. Now we can go to the systems and processes. And maybe that means we've got the wrong people on the bus. Maybe they just are on the wrong seat on the bus. Maybe they were wanting to actually do it the way that would be empowering from the start, and you already have the right people. And now we just have to shift the way that we're giving them autonomy and authority to move forward and accomplish the goals. And once we've got that and we've got the framework of the business, now we have a business that can be not necessarily self-sustaining. It depends on the industry and what kind of business, but it means that it doesn't need from you and take from you the time and the energy and the whole thing of like, if you've ever caught yourself saying, well, nobody does anything if I'm not around and nobody moves forward on this or that. I mean, yes, there's some truth to that. Yes, there's a reason why most corporations are bringing people back in the office, right? But if we're clear enough and we give enough ownership, and it is a win-win between us and the person in the role, then that person is going to be empowered, and we empower them to make decisions and have autonomy and have authority and to move the system forward. Then that's when we start to create an actual scalable business that may or may not need you as the owner operator. Now, it depends on the industry. Some businesses are structured best as the owner being the main operator, and yet a lot of them are structured where the owner can step out of operation, but they can't do that running it in an entrepreneurial, self-employed type of way. You have to do that with systems and processes and being a business owner and working through the emotional part to say, what am I creating in this situation? So time management ultimately is self-management of working through those emotions so that we empower ourselves to be able to tolerate the space that we create and be able to move people forward by creating a system that has clarity and authority and autonomy for the people to step up and do the things that they want to do. And then once you have that, now it's a systematic standpoint of, okay, how can I delegate different pieces of the roles that I'm playing and take the things that are highest dollar productive for the company that I do and take the lower things that are less dollar productive that I do for the company and leverage those to AI, leverage those to someone else that fits more of their skill set, and start to pull yourself out of the business piece by piece while still maintaining the oversight from the ownership role.